Welcome back to Mega Man Zero. Last time, the Resistance base was attacked, but this time the enemy made it inside, so everyone's pretty rattled from the experience. But thanks to the mysterious cyber elf, who the audience knows is X, we are able to access Neo Arcadia's shrine, which isn't quite where we need to go in order to fight Copy X, but it is close enough. So yes, we are essentially in the fortress stages at this point. We've got a pretty lengthy level in comparison to most of the game. We've got a lot to do, and a lot of cyber elves to get as well. That being said, of course, since we do now know the real identity of the main villain of the game, it is in fact a copy of X and not the original X, we can talk a little bit about that. That also means that I'm finally able to bring my copy of Mega Man Zero: The Complete Works out of the plastic, which I'm only doing because I couldn't find a trustworthy source for the English version on the internet. But I do own a copy, so I'm going to be using it. Though first off, we have a mini-boss. These are the Pantheon Aces. They don't fuck around. So yeah, these guys are really annoying. They're going to be off-screen a lot of the time, they move very suddenly. They do, however, alternate their firing patterns, so one will fire than the other, if you can figure out which one is where, which isn't actually that hard. It's not the worst battle to deal with. But you know what does suck to deal with? This upcoming segment. So, alright. I don't have a frame of reference for this because I haven't even played the original Hollow Knight, but I remember a lot of people complaining about, like, some diagonal jumps or something that you need to do in that, right? Which, you know, having had to deal with this, which, by the way, this isn't even the thing I was talking about, though, it is very annoying. You have to destroy that container, and at this point, I'm just waiting for the cyber elf to come down. But yeah, I wish this game had diagonal stab jumps. You know what really sucks? Having to hold straight down while still moving to the side. It's the worst. Right, so I guess I don't just skip straight back, so, I guess while we make our way back up and I continue my point later, there is, of course, an interview with the devs at the end of the book, similar to, the collection for Mega Man X Command mission that I pulled from very frequently. I did like that as a source, it's really nice to just have that on hand. More literal now. But pretty early on in the interview, they do actually get into discussion about choosing X as the final boss. Right, so, I'm not the biggest fan of the triple rod. It's not my least favorite weapon in the series, though certainly my least favorite in the game. So in order to get this next cyber elf, you have to, eventually, do a successful pogo jump off of these enemies. Think DuckTales, except this game wasn't made around doing this all that much, just for this cyber elf. You can do it, clearly, but you don't usually, and it is a pain in the ass to do. So, with that out of the way, now I can actually get into the quote. So, why did you decide to make the X the last boss? The last boss was a very popular topic of discussion, and we visited the Capcom offices many times to try and get a consensus. The decision was produced from these discussions, although it was more of a joke at first. Suda kinda just said, "What if we made X the last boss?" To which Inafune responded with, "Sure, why not?" And that, as they say, was that. Once we were sure that X was really going to be the last boss, we asked Nakayama to do some drawings to that effect, and the proposal just grew from there. This, by the way, is actually a full-on boss. You only ever fight him once, so I'm gonna use his weakness here, but this is Asura Basura. And Asura is essentially a demigod in Hinduism. Noted extremely angry man from that one video game. And apparently, the word Basura means trash in Spanish, which kind of accurately describes this boss. It's not typical. Anyway, back to the quote. As a note of interest, at this time the last boss was X the original X and not Copy X. It really wasn't until just before release that we decided to change it to Copy X. Just before release? A month before release? Laughs. Yeah, I think that's about right. We realized that having the original X as the last boss and having him done away with like that wouldn't sit so well with all the young boys and girls that really do see him as a hero. On top of that, the X series was still continuing, so we put in an emergency stop and inserted Copy X. This meant that the X in the illustrations had to be Copy X, which required some rearranging on our parts. That was also when we came up with the idea that Copy X was Ciel's creation. The only problem with that was, if we were going to say that Ciel created Copy X, it gave way to a few inconsistencies timeline-wise, so we had to come up with some complex explanations real fast. We made it so that Ciel herself was a product of the technological advancements of Neo Arcadia, with the dream of creating a utopia for humans and Reploids sworn to protect those humans. Researchers were working on producing humans with altered DNA. In the process, some children were born for specific purpose of developing better Reploids to assist in this research. Ciel was one of these children and was a prodigy. Just by watching and mimicking the experiments, she somehow managed to produce Copy X. This let us explain how Ciel could have been Copy X's creator. She was 9 years old at the time. That sounds about right. They used the same methods to create the four Guardians. When Copy X, her own creation, went out of control, she felt so guilty that she escaped from Neo Arcadia and founded the Resistance. During her efforts with the Resistance, she hears rumors leading to the location of legendary hero, the Reploid called Zero. This is the story leading up to the opening sequence of Mega Man Zero 1. So yeah, I guess more on that next time, but just imagine you're working on the guy who's going to rule over all of you, and then this fucking child comes in and is like, no, I got this. Here, I'll figure this one out. And that's Ciel. That never actually comes up in the main game, so I don't feel bad about mentioning that now, but yeah, that's a whole thing. Anyway, here's Herculious Ancus. Ancus? Anchus? Either way, though, he is a beetle, though not technically a Hercules beetle necessarily, from what I understand. But the important part, of course, is that he is named after Hercules, specifically the Roman version of the character. The Greek one was Heracles, which, look, it does make watching Disney's Hercules a little weird after you've taken a few Greek classes, because you're like, that's not the correct pronunciation. I'm guessing Hercules just flowed better in dialogue and song, but like, that's not the Greek version of the character. Anyway, he's dead now, we killed him. He's very easy, honestly, I can't really think of any particular attacks I had a lot of trouble with. His EX skill is the one where he jumped up, spread out his arms or electricity or whatever, and then just started shooting with bullets. Just go from one side of the room to the other and you can dodge those easy enough. Anyway, we do have a checkpoint here. For some reason I remember being able to, like, keep going through that next door into the next mission. Maybe I should double check to see if that's possible, or if I'm just lying to myself, but I do recall just being able to continue on, but let's not do that, because we have the chance to come back to the Resistance base. We are kind of on the warpath to Neo Arcadia, but if we can stop and save, we might as well stop and save. And next time, I guess we'll discuss the ramifications of Copy X now that we've seen the dev explanation for the character. So yeah, I will see you then when we continue on to Neo Arcadia's core. But not into the core. That's a whole thing in of itself.